Democratic senators now announced their support for a nuclear deal with Iran, and that helps to put the president a little bit closer to gaining congressional approval, but it is far from a done deal.
Indeed, joining us now is Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat of Virginia, to talk about how he made his decision to endorse the nuclear agreement. And good morning to you.
Hey, Maureen. Hey, Steve.
Very controversial, but we want to hear from you. Why did you think this was a good deal?
Well, I wrote the bill, actually, with Senator Bob Corker that gives Congress this review period because I very much believe that this is the kind of deal that Congress has to weigh in. But after extensive briefings and over the past 2 years, I've been in the Middle East 5 times to talk with the regions there about it. I think the deal is dramatically better than the status quo. We were sanctioning Iran and punishing their economy, but their nuclear program was racing ahead. 19,000 centrifuges, 11,000 kilograms of uranium, a plutonium facility. We had very few inspections to know what they were doing. Under this deal, they will disable 2/3 of their centrifuges for 15 years. They'll eliminate 98% of the stockpile of uranium. So what they'll end up with, 300 kilograms, not even enough to make one weapon. And they're going to completely disable the plutonium facility and then give us more inspections so we can know what's going on, which will, A, help us determine if they cheat, and B, if we were ever to need to take military action to stop a nuclear weapons program, it would give us a lot more intelligence about what they're doing and what we would need to do. So I think it's just so much better than the status quo, at least for the first 15 years. We ought to give diplomacy a chance. And if Iran cheats, we've built into the deal a number of things that we can do to take action, either to stop the deal, sanction them, or, God forbid, if they break toward a nuclear weapon, we can take military action.
A couple of things here. One, you said that this is preferable to any other alternative,
yes,
including war. And the other thing is, speaking of that, yesterday when the president was speaking at AU, just down the road from here, he basically and essentially said the vote in Congress to vote for war or peace. Is that a little strong language there?
I don't think I don't think it's quite so stark, but it is a vote for disabling their program or letting it race ahead. And if it races ahead, the chances of war gets more likely. We have had a member of the Senate, an influential member of the Senate, say, war with Iran, don't worry, that would only take 2 or 3 days. So when you have people in the Senate saying things like that, they're acknowledging that war is a possibility. I don't think it's do this deal or it's war, but I do think it's do this deal or the Iranian program will go back to racing ahead, and that will increase the likelihood of war.
You know, in this whole argument, the one thing that strikes me is everyone is saying, who's opposing this, I haven't heard anyone say what an alternative would be. And that's the thing that I keep coming back to, is saying, what is the alternative? Because if we're to say that this move now is not strong enough or leaves room for them to build a bomb before we start inspecting, then what is the alternative?
Maureen, the only alternative I've heard, Senator Cotton of Arkansas has said a war with Iran would only take 2 or 3 days. So he's at least put an alternative on the table. Now, I think that that's wrong. It would take a lot more than that, and so would military leaders. I think what the others believe to be an alternative is turn down this deal, walk away, and you'll get a better deal. But if we go back to the status quo, we walk away, we start sanctioning Iran, they're going to do exactly what they were doing.
And we'd be alone because the other nations, they've already said, we're going ahead with this.
They like the deal.
Yeah.
We would be alone, and Iran would likely go right back to doing what they were doing, growing centrifuges, growing uranium, processing plutonium for weapons. So I think it's important to give this diplomacy a chance. And the good news is, in this deal, if Iran cheats, the world will know it, and the world will know it's them cheating, not the United States walking away from diplomacy.
All right, in the essence of time right now, we're going to have to go a little lightning round on you, Senator. First of all, I do want to mention ISIL right now, trying to prevent that. You've been pushing for this authorization of military force right now.
1 year anniversary of war on Saturday, and Congress had a debate nor voted to authorize it. I took to the Senate floor yesterday and talked about how dangerous it is for a nation and how disrespectful it is for our troops that Congress hasn't weighed in. We're asking people to risk their lives, about 3,500 folks over risking their lives right now. 7 service members have lost their lives in this operation, and Congress has refused to even have a debate about the war is in America's national interest. It's shocking.
So much to talk about, but very quickly, given what's happening on Metro right now, weigh in on this. You know, Metro has been plagued with problems. What's your take on yet this other disruption?
Metro has fundamental problems at the top. It's management. It is the board, and it's the lack of a executive director right now, which I think that's partly because of dysfunction on the board. I think the board needs some dramatic change, and until you make that happen, I don't think you're going to see the kinds of improvements that Metro needs.
Can that happen, though, without them coming back to you in Congress and asking for more money? Because that's what we tend to always hear from Metro.
Well, look, you can change. They're going to have a hard time. more investments are needed. This is a big system. It's important to the region. But they have a harder time making the case because of, frankly, the management challenges. And so I think reform of the board, because they're searching for a new executive director, but it's very difficult, I think, to get the kind of top quality person who we should have. This is one of the premier systems in the country. There should be a great CEO of the system, and there isn't right now, and I think that really is at the feet of the board, and we got to have a better board.
All right. Senator Tim Kaine, so much to talk about. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but as always, we appreciate your input and what you're doing.
Good
Thank
to be
you.
with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Senator.